Welcome to Charts Today. My name's David Linton, and today's edition for Monday, the 30th of January, comes to you from London. And we start by looking at currencies, then we'll look at stock markets, some commodities, and last of all, some tech stocks. And interesting in currencies this morning, we're just seeing some new changes creeping in. Dollar index is back above the clouds, so we're just seeing the dollar strength kicking back in here in the short term. We do have these downside targets on the dollar index, and we still do have a downtrend on this point and figure chart, the 60-minute point and figure chart. So interestingly, we do have a bit of a mixed picture, but the medium term we've found support on the cloud, and the long term we're still very much above the cloud. So for the moment, we've got upside potential. We've got a little upside target here as well on the long-term 1% chart of 105. Remember, this is my long-term, my medium-term, and my short-term. And so for the moment, the dollar is staging a bit of a recovery, although we don't yet have any clear upside targets to speak of. If we take a look at the euro, we see here that we're below the cloud on all three charts again. We do have, again, these upside targets for the euro, a little downside target and some support. So the medium term and the long term picture of the euro is still very, very bearish. But short term, we do still have some upside potential. But at the moment, we are back below the cloud. So that's just telling us that the euro is weakening again. Taking a look at the 1-minute chart, we can just press the T key on our system. We've got 104.60, that's not yet activated. We've got downside and upside targets, so a fairly mixed picture. We go to the very short term. We still do have this 107 area, but we're just seeing this slow burn. That's not giving us downside targets as such. So this is really the key, this 104.60, if we move lower than 106.50. So that's just a level to watch. We're at 106.89 at the moment. So a move below 106.50 would activate that downside target. It is only one. And of course, if we move below this 105.90 area, then we start to deactivate these upside targets. So that's what to watch for the euro this week. Looking at the Japanese yen, seeing the dollar strengthen here again. It's quite interesting. We're above the cloud, so dollar strengthening against the yen. Bullish on pretty well all three time frames. Not get through on the weekly cloud. If we make a new high above the 118.70 level, then we activate a very big upside target. So dollar strength long term is very much the theme. Sterling at a very interesting place this morning, back below the cloud on the 60-minute chart. So that's just broken down. You'll notice this action of high, then a low, then a lower high, then a low, then a lower high, then a lower low. Classic Dow theory going on here. That's what the clouds are good at showing you. And we've activated this downside target of 122.86. These downside targets really hanging over us. And most interestingly, sterling, the lagging line, just not managed to get above the cloud. That's where we got stuck, pushing away again. So quite interesting there. If we take a look at the 1-minute chart for sterling, again, just press the T key on your system. So 123.40 is the target. If we go to a smaller box size, I'm doing that down in this bottom right hand corner here. Smaller box size 123.95. Notice how the downside targets of these selling thrusts, there'll be a new one off this, are just starting to kick in now. So we're seeing here again a bit of, like the euro, a bit of a slow burn there. It's not showing up on the very, very short term charts, but interestingly we just are starting to see this downward pressure creeping in. Sterling off 0.3% this morning. We look at sterling against the euro. We see here again just starting to weaken. So sterling, having had some relative strength, is now weakening slightly. Same against the Swiss, we're falling, and against the Aussie dollar, not quite through the cloud yet on the lagging line. New downside target of 163.52. Seeing quite a bit of volatility there, and that's quite key. Looking at stock markets, the S&P 500, fairly benign close on Friday. We see that weekly candle there at the end of the chart. So an up week taking us to a new all-time high, breaking out on the daily on the last few days of the week. We just see that sideways, then move. Remember, with the move into the pattern, then sideways, and a similar move out, that implies really about 200 points move there, potential. And we're seeing again upside targets. 7% upside target here on the very short-term chart. So really looking pretty positive all round. Nasdaq the same. We're seeing again breaking to new highs. Remember, from technical analysis point of view, new highs are good. The Dow holding that 20,000 level, finally breaking through last week. We've now got highs to 20,800 here on the short-term chart, and even higher still, 18% upside there showing through. U.S. markets have this upside potential of around 20%. It's quite amazing. 19.7% on the Russell 2000, 21% on the medium-term chart. We're seeing this all kicking in. So this market hasn't quite broken out like the S&P and the Nasdaq hasn't broken to new highs here, but inevitably probably will. Just seeing the futures down slightly this morning, down 0.25%, so it's just suggesting we might see the markets close down, open up down a little bit. FTSE's down 0.9% this morning, just opened pretty well straight down. We've got a 2% downside target here, so we're down nearly 1% this morning. We still do have these medium and up-term targets, so long-term and medium-term charts looking bullish. Unlike the US, FTSE is just still bearish in the short term. What could be going on here actually is we're just coming back and testing this breakout, this resistance breakout. We're coming back to test that from the other side, and much the same applies on the 250, where we're just testing this 18,000 level, the FTSE 250 mid caps. But we are just the last week or so we have been bearish below the cloud, so we need to wait for a move back above the cloud. The DAX, however, is above the cloud on all three time frames, so that's still pretty bullish. And the Nikkei also bullish above all three time frames. Weak yen has helped there. Chinese markets, of course, are closed for Chinese New Year, so no action there to speak of. The Indian market starting to motor now, having broken through the cloud on the daily, found support on the weekly, and we've got some amazing upside targets. We've got 7% upside if we break to a new high, higher than what we saw last week, and we've got these really massive upside targets on the long term. So Indian market has a long-term potential which is very, very high, and we're seeing the Australian market below the cloud here at the moment, so we're just in a bearish phase. We did sell off overnight, down 0.9%, but we do have these upside targets outweighing the downside targets and quite good support in the charts. So we expect the Aussie market to be back into bullish territory in the short term this week. Looking at Brent, just down a little bit this morning, just struggling to stay above this cloud here at the moment. No clear downside targets to speak of, but we are very much still in this time of year where we expect to move in the price, and the high 50s is the first stop that we expect. Break the high 50s, then we're into the 60s, 70s. So we do have quite a lot of upside potential still on Brent. Looking at WTI, much the same picture, of course. US Nat Gas is just given a couple of more downside targets over the last week. So 309, 318, really struggling to just get out of this sort of 350 range. We did break higher at the start of the year, but we just haven't managed to hold that. A lot of volatility showing in the gas chart, but we see here in the weekly chart, you take that volatility out, we've got a pretty clear picture of long-term rising gas prices, just back below the cloud in the short term there. So a mixed picture at the moment. Short-term bearish, long-term bullish. If we take a look to gold, gold has been selling off the last few days. We saw that at the end of last week. Just hitting the cloud resistance here on the short-term chart. No really big downside targets to talk of on the 60-minute chart here. What's interesting is we have locked this target now. Having had this pullback, we've locked that first buying move. If we then move higher than this level over here, then we activate that upside target to 1396, taking us to a new high. But of course the picture is still bearish, but if we break above that, that's our first sign that we might see the recovery. And the weekly cloud, of course, the lagging line has stayed above the cloud. We do have downside targets and upside targets. That will be resolved as we see whether the first thing to look for a short term is, will this recent high that we saw be broken? So that's the key thing. The high here is back over here. It's around 12.25. We break that high, we activate that target, and that will be quite key. Of course, if you're watching gold very closely, you could take a look at the 1-minute chart. We see here, just looking for downside potential here of 1146. If we go to a smaller box size, interestingly here, this is the picture now. 1154 is activated, so that's downside potential of 3%. We do have a new upside target of 1221, but for that to be activated, we need to see a break above this 1196, 1197 level. So interesting thing is, if we break higher there, then we start to make a move back towards the top of this range. We'll deactivate that downside target. That would be up. But of course, if we go lower, then that starts to suggest we're going to this lower target. So that's what to watch out for on gold. If we take a look at silver, we see here that it's back above the cloud, unlike gold, so it's leading the gold price a little bit here. Found a good bounce on the cloud, a long-term cloud, and just testing resistance here. So always good to watch a couple of the precious metals. US bond prices, bond yields, still hanging around at this 2.5% level. A lot of noise in the market with everything that's going on with the new president in the US. But interestingly, we're still bullish on all three time frames, so yields holding up. Tech had a great week last week, really just continuing to run up. Apple moving higher. Results out shortly. Google results disappointed a little bit, but the price is still above the cloud. Amazon above the cloud on all three time frames. Tech looking extremely strong. Last three stocks, Facebook, Microsoft, and Nvidia, are stocks I hold. I should probably declare that. So Facebook back above the cloud, really motoring to make a new high here. We've negated the downside target, so that's really quite key on Facebook. We've got a plethora of upside targets here, and we've negated the downside target. A new upside potential here of 193. If we move just a little bit higher, we activate that. That's 46% upside. So Facebook just seems to have no end to it. And here we see on the medium-term charts the same again. Results out this week for Facebook, so it'll be very interesting to see if they are in line with what the charts are saying. And we've got an upside target of 141 here, so expect a lot of volatility around the price, certainly ahead of those results. Microsoft results last week really jumped quite strongly on the results, really just running here. I bought Microsoft basically because it made a new 15-year high just a couple of months ago, breaking this level here, starting to run 26% upside, 28% upside here, and just 1% upside on the short-term chart. So no, nothing stellar, but just steadily improving. Because Nvidia, the stock that's my best performing stock over the last year, is more than tripled. A lot of volatility creeping in at the end of the trend here. We have this downside target that will be deactivated if we move to new highs, and that will be interesting to see whether we can do that. But the tech backdrop is pretty good at the moment. That's it for today. Until tomorrow, happy charting. See you then.